Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name is Serge.
And my name is James.
And we only have 9 hours till the deadline, James. So let's talk really fast so that we get all the information across to people in the next hour and a bit and whatever, and gives them time to listen to the podcast, make all their transfers, and move on with their lives.
And I didn't just speed Serge up on the edit. How was your game week, sir? How did it end?
Okay. I think it was the game week to keep up with everybody. It was basically in the mini leagues that I'm in and thereabouts. It's much of a muchness with the engaged managers, somewhere between 65 and 70s where I've seen most scores. I ended on 68, which gives me a game week rank of just under 800k. I'm in the top 500,000 for the first time this season.
Oh, I wish I bought the party, Papa.
Oh, exactly. But it's a steady rise. Like, I think 250k is going to be easy and pushing for. I really, really think that beating my rank of last year, which was 151k, 131k is going to be my absolute biggest challenge. I don't think I'll get there, but that's what I'm setting myself. Highest ever rank, 131k. And with 3 hit in the bag, it's not impossible. It's not impossible. But also there's one mini league that I'm in that there's only 3 of us in it, but it's quite competitive because it's close mates. And where I was 85 or 90 points behind about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I'm 18 points behind the top now. So the gap's closing. I'm in a better position strategically knowing what's happening with the fixtures than some of the guys who are fucked, basically, which we'll talk about. So 68 points I'm happy with. Look, Trent, I had 5 returners, and in any given week, if you have 5 returners and your captain goes big, you're going to do okay. Trent, 4th game in a row, maximum bonus points. So just he's motoring up nicely for the end of the season. I think he's got one eye on the Euros.
8-pointer, Trent.
Yeah, 8-pointer. While we talk about the Euros, happy St. George's Day to all the English listeners who are interested. I may as well say, come on, we're going to win the Euros. Come on, England. If you're not from England, you're not going to win it because we're going to win it. Let's get it out there today of all days.
Wembley are trying to steal Dublin's last 16 match at the Euros because
they're just offering a backup.
They're trying to steal it because if England win the group, England play that game as well. So it would be at Wembley.
We're going to win it until we get knocked out in the quarters. Son and Kane ended up being Son and Kane ended up being much of a muchness. To everybody that was celebrating Kane after the first game, Son second game. Jesse Lingard is just the gift that keeps giving, and Iheanacho as well is just consistently drip feeding along returns at the moment. So it was good. I'm fairly happy with that. And going into this week where I have 3 players that are not playing in Ruben Diaz, Heung-min Son and Harry Kane. Kane's injury makes it quite an easy sell for me to get myself another player. Like I haven't got tons of value built up in Kane. I bought him at 11.5. He's 11.8. I'll get 11.6. He's going to go down to 11.7 in my opinion. So I'll end up it's only going to cost me 0.1, 0.2 worst case scenario when I want to get him back. So I think it's too much money for me to just leave sitting there this week. I'll just power someone else in who I think has got the best fixture.
What will you do then in game week 34?
Buy him back.
Really? Okay. Yeah. It's not crossed my mind to sell Harry this week because I know I'm going to stick the armband on him in 34. We think that he's going to play on Sunday. Seems to be the news, so he's going to be fit.
Rafinha is also flagged. If I had confidence that Rafinha was going to play, then I'd feel maybe a bit more confident in leaving Kane out. But I ended up with 10 men this week, as did a lot of people, because I had no goalkeeper, and neither did you, right? Leno,
that's right.
Forster, Mendy, Forster, we all got done over, right? So I don't want another week of 10 players. It doesn't really help. Maybe moving Rafinha on is the better move. I'll see.
Can I just explain for the benefit of everyone, because I'm not going to have time to do a proper kind of edit on this so we can get this out quickly. If you can hear a little bit of ambience in the background, that's my son, okay? Because I'm working the wife's working. We need to keep him busy. So we've put the 2008 Brazilian Grand Prix on him. So there's lots of wooing going on at the moment. So if you can hear a child that's quite excited, he just likes watching cars go round in circles. That's what the noise is. Apologies.
Did you give him breakfast?
No, we don't. You know, I spoke to Solskjaer. We don't feed our kids, right?
Oh, mate, wicked.
My week has landed good.
Can I I just realised that actually I've got 3.2 million in the bank. So moving Rafinha on for a week actually might be the better choice because it gives me 8.6 million. That's a lot of money for a midfielder.
What are you going to do with that 8.6 million?
That's a good question. Haven't decided. We're gonna figure it out on the pod today.
Okay, right. Okay, I finished on 77 points, which has landed as a pretty good week in the end.
Very good. Yeah.
64 of those points coming from two teams, Tottenham and Leicester.
Yeah, of course.
You know me. I like to hammer into it if I can. So Kane, Son, Reguilon, Fofana, very fluky clean sheet because
61 minutes.
Yeah, it'll do. Iheanacho 6.0, which I mean, my goodness, he could have easily had a hat-trick again last night.
By half time as well, not just the overall.
And what got me out of the pack, where you said sort of 65 to 70 was sort of scores you were seeing, was the Jamie Vardy 10-pointer. He's what's kind of lifted me out of the pack as a bit of a differential for this game week. The only other returnee I had was Jesse Lingard. Like you said, absolutely, Harry, calm down. Absolutely got done on the goalkeepers. I'm pretty sure in my case that Leno will play for Arsenal tonight, so I'm not concerned about that problem. Mendy, I think, will come back in for the Chelsea game. I guess we're hoping that Tuchel's as honest as he was last weekend when he said, look, Kepa will play against Brighton. That's what you want this week from him, is to say, yeah, I'm going to bring Mendy back in goal today. The problem is...
I'm happy for Mendy not to play, mate, to be honest with you.
So who's your other keeper?
Forster, but that's not from an FPL point of view. Couldn't care less. If I'd rather Kepa play for Chelsea because West Ham are playing Chelsea, and I think Kepa's a calamity waiting to happen. So give me Kepa. I'm happy with that. I'll take 0 points in FPL for my goalkeeper to have Kepa in goal for Chelsea.
I've got the Arsenal goalkeeper. What do you think I'd take? 0 every single week, right? Come on. I get that. I guess the concern, because there will be a lot of people who do care about it though, looking at Kepa and going, right, clean sheet against Man City in the Cup. So if I'm another clean sheet at Brighton, is it possible that they switch it and he goes, right, shit, I'm actually going to go Kepa as number one? Is that a possibility? So I think Mendy owners got a bit more of a problem than, say, the Leno owners. But for the Leno owners, he doesn't remove the possibility that this won't happen again, particularly, say, when Arsenal play West Brom in a few weeks in game week 35, after, say, Villarreal, or the Newcastle game that's sandwiched between their Europa League semi-final. There's a possibility that he could go, yeah, Matt Ryan's training like a beast, as we heard. Could Matt Ryan play again? So I think that's a possibility. But I would be extremely surprised if Leno didn't play against Everton tonight. We've got 6 days from tonight to the Villarreal game, and he's obviously had a break for a week as well. I don't see why Leno wouldn't play. Anyway, I've got problems now. So I've got 5 players from teams blanking this week, one of which doesn't matter because it's Fraser Forster, but I've got 4 outfield players. So I would already be deaded to 10. So I've got Son, Reguilon, Kane, and I've got Ruben Diaz of Manchester City. I have Nat Phillips flagged. The understanding is yesterday that Nat Phillips did train for Liverpool and probably will be okay for the weekend. There's also extremely good news if you're a Trent Alexander-Arnold owner, by the way, because it probably means Fabinho back in midfield, and we'll talk about Liverpool in a little bit. Rafinha also I've got as flagged. I could very easily be down to 8 players here. If I'm wrong about Leno, it could become 7 players. And there's a bigger problem, not shown on the official FPL website this morning. But I've heard that Diogo Jota is in a bad way, and it's possible anterior cruciate ligament injury is being rumoured this morning. Obviously, hopefully that's not true. And keep an eye on, obviously, Jurgen Klopp's press conference this afternoon. But then that could very quickly take me down to 6 players this game week, if all goes wrong. So, have you got Jota as well?
I have.
Yeah. You didn't know that, did you?
No. But, I mean, yeah, it's fine.
Must stress that is not confirmed news in any way. That is just a rumor that I've heard from a few sources. And it's nothing more than that at the moment. So I'm looking at it and probably going, my City Tottenham is the first problem. I need to, obviously, if I don't sell one of them, I'm definitely at 10 players either way. So it was always going to be a case of, I was going to get to the end of this week and make the decision on who I binned from the Spurs assets or Ruben Diaz. I made that choice, and that's been quite straightforward in the end, actually, is to sell Ruben Diaz. Don't want to, because it leaves me with no Manchester City players. They obviously don't play this weekend. They've got Crystal Palace 3 days after PSG, which is 3 days after Tottenham, and it's 3 days before PSG again. And I'm just looking at those 4 games, and I'm thinking, why do you want Ruben Diaz to play against Crystal Palace? So I've possibly got quite an expensive defender not going to play for me in the next 2 weeks. And then when he possibly returns in game week 35, it's a single game week fixture against Chelsea. With what I've got, there's a fair chance I would have been benching him anyway, ironically. And I would never bench a Manchester City player, to be honest. So I think Ruben Diaz is definitely going to go for me. And the others, I'm hoping for good news on Phillips. I'm hoping for good news on Rafinha. I'm expecting probably bad news on Jota. So what I'm probably going to do is sell Diaz and Jota. I've got 2 free transfers. And that should, I think, get me to 11. The names I'm considering at the moment, and it is purely dependent on the team this afternoon, are going to shock you. The defender I'm thinking of using to replace Ruben Diaz is Matt Targett of Aston Villa. Good fixture this weekend, obviously, against West Bromwich Albion, and I don't think I should overlook the immediate. We're expecting a game week 35 double for them, and they also gives me cover for a likely blank game week of game week 36. The double is not the best, Manchester United and Everton, but I'd take 4 points from it now if you could offer me that in the game week. And then it's Palace in 36, which is still a decent fixture. The other game weeks I've been looking to bench him. So I'm only looking at Matt Targett for West Brom, double game week, Crystal Palace. That's why he's under consideration for me. And the midfield name's probably going to make you fall off your chair at the moment, Suj. I'm thinking of buying Wilfried Zaha.
Zaha, hey?
Body for this week. He's got a good record historically against Leicester, actually. So I'm about to buy a Crystal Palace player before they play Leicester and Manchester City. Can you comprehend that? So what I'm thinking here is body for this week. Leicester have been susceptible to counter-attacks in home games this season. Manchester City, I would bench him. Honestly, even at that value, I'd bench him against Man City. Then I've got him for double Sheffield United and Southampton. And then they themselves play Villa in 36. It's good cover. Cover. And then bin him for the final 2. That's what I'm actually thinking. I can't believe that. And you know me, my head has not been in FPL space at all this week, which in an odd way, I think has done me a favour because I've now found out the potential Jota problem and just looking for the solution for that. The ideal one I'd go for is Maddison all day long, but I've already got 3 Leicester players, so that's off the table. Manchester City players I might have considered, like Foden and stuff. Obviously, they're not playing. I haven't got the money to get up to, say, a Mane or someone like that. There's nothing going down from Jota that I particularly like in value. I did, for similar reasons, I did consider John McGinn because he played in a higher position against Manchester City on Wednesday, but I'm not in love with that at all. So I just think, again, what I might be using Zaha for, Leicester, Sheffield United, Southampton, Villa, is not that bad, actually. So I might, and it's differential, right?
So yeah, no doubt about it. I think this is one where the logic is sound. But
the choices are dumb. I know that.
Yeah. See, if I'm in a position where if we get news on Jota and he doesn't play and he's out and he's done for the season, then I'll sell him instead of Rafinha and I'll just stomach Rafinha. I just had a look at I talked to you about my mini league with 2 other guys. I hadn't checked what their situation for game week 33 is. The guy below me, he's got 7 players out. He's got 3. He's got 2 Fulham, Spurs and City, and the other guy's got 6, 3 of Spurs, 3 City. So regardless, they're up shit creek at the moment. The advantage I've got over you is, well, it's not an advantage, but I don't have 3 Leicester already. So for me, Maddison
as
a midfielder. It's just too easy to go to. If I had, because you've got triple Leicester, that's why you can't consider another Leicester player, for example. So yeah, Maddo's the one for me. The only thing is, obviously, then I don't have him for the cup final. But if they play that game midweek afterwards, and it's still in one game week anyway, then that shouldn't be a problem, right? But if they bring it forward, and I get the double before with Maddo.
Yeah, I mean, look, if in 35 you would still look at it and go Newcastle at home's the first fixture, I'd just treat anything against Manchester United as a return.
Yep.
That's so, because originally the plan for the 3 Leicester would have been the 4 game weeks, obviously including last night against West Brom. The Manchester United fixture just becomes an added bonus, basically. Anything they get from that, even 6 points between 3 of them, you go, well, that's on top of what my original plan was anyway. So, yeah, I think if you haven't got the 3 Leicester, I think that's probably where everyone's going to be targeting this week in the main, is Leicester. Yeah, you've missed the West Brom fixture, but you've still got 2 very good fixtures and possible double. You just have to remember, as I said on Monday's pod before we went through all the Super League stuff, is don't leave yourself too short. We expect, yes, that 8 teams are going to double in game week 35, but we expect that Arsenal, Chelsea, Leicester and Manchester United will blank in game week 36. And it's another reason why, for me, go, surely, James, you want to go like a Greenwood over Zaha. Yeah, I probably do. It's going to give me a fucking headache. And I'm not that convinced how much he's going to play. When I spoke to Andy and Gary yesterday for Clash of Correspondence, we talked about Solskjaer and repeating successful tactics of the past, such as, obviously, they keep playing the same way at the Etihad and they keep beating City, right? Their performance against Leeds was the best tactical performance from anyone against Leeds this season when they beat them 6-2 earlier in the season. And very unexpectedly that day, Solskjaer put Daniel James in the team. And I think he might do the same at Leeds on Sunday. So if you're looking at Fernandes, Pogba, Greenwood, Rashford, Cavani, James, can I even be sure that a Greenwood's going to play in this week or a next week? So, and there's going to be rotation for United in terms of after Leeds. They've obviously got Europa League, 3 days Liverpool, 4 days Europa League, 3 days Villa, and it's going to be 3 days Leicester, almost definitely. It's going to be rotation there as well, no doubt about it. Would you take someone like Zaha? I know, as long as he's fit, I'm getting 2 games of him against 2 of the worst defences in the league in Sheffield United and Southampton.
Yep.
That's what I'm looking at.
Yep. But they are on the beach as well, remember that.
And they've also fucking shit. That's a really important fact. I wouldn't advise anybody else to go for Wilfried Zaha. I spoke earlier in the week saying that I think people like him. If Grealish is back available, Danny Ings has probably got injured himself now, will come into people's thinking in the next week or so. I'm convinced that's going to happen. I've decided I've got a problem now and I'm going to pull the trigger on my thoughts for game week 35 now. That's what I've decided to do. I obviously don't expect Zaha to get me anything at Leicester, but I'm going to get it done now. I think that's the way I'm leaning. Don't hate me if my deadline string comes up and Wilfried Zaha's not in my team, because I could well come to my senses. I'm up to 210k, Such.
Not bad. How many points have you got in total, James? If you don't
that's such a shit question.
Okay, sorry. I just wanted to know what the gap is. I think it's about
1,993.
So 60 points between us is about 250,000 places, 270,000 places. Understood. Before we get into the games, have you got an idea on who you're sticking the armband on this week?
Yeah, Mo Salah.
If I owned Salah, it would be Mo Salah for me as well, but I don't.
I would, in preference, I would say Salah. I mean, he's had the break against Leeds on Monday, so it was almost a certainty to start this week anyway. The no Jota makes it more likely that you're actually going to get 90 out of him as well, rather than a dodgy 60 or 70 minutes or so. They've got no game, obviously, in the midweek afterwards. They don't actually play for 8 days afterwards. I think after that, my preference would be Iheanacho Vardy, then Fernandes. That would be my preference for the weekend at the moment. I would go to one of the Leicester front 2 over Fernandes in my thinking at the moment. But I'm going to go Salah.
I think I'm going to go Fernandes. I do have Iheanacho, but I don't think I'm going to go Iheanacho. I think I'm going to go Fernandes. And then I'm going to be, my second choice or vice captain at the moment as it stands will be Trent. I think they're good for a clean sheet against Newcastle. So I think it'll be Fernandes first up and then Trent. And I mean, Fernandes is highly likely to play, isn't he? So I'm not
I'll go vice Iheanacho. obviously split it between 2 different games. There's also a possibility Newcastle games, when they've had their players fit, we spoke about this 2 months ago, expect Newcastle games potentially to be higher scoring. They still give up a lot of chances and stuff. And there's also a possibility, mentality-wise, that they might think the job is done.
I think they will.
That's also a possibility, and that could make them even more open. So I think, I'll go Salah. I think it's the sort of one where if I've got Mo Salah and I'm fearing captain him at home to Newcastle just after he's had a break and stuff, I probably need to be asking myself some questions.
Now let's talk about the games, and we're talking about Liverpool there a little bit. 1-1 with Leeds on Monday night. I feel like this is the week that football forgot, or the week that football is forgotten.
It so is. You know how my brain just absorbs shit. I quite agree with you. I think there's shit from this week that I will never remember.
Yeah. But I do remember at the end of the Chelsea game thinking, shit, 2 days in a row, Liverpool and Chelsea have both dropped points in this Champions League race. Now, you guys and Leicester obviously did win in the following 2 days. So
don't worry about us, mate.
I know, but I think look, when you're only 2-3 points away from it, you're still in it. And there'll be renewed kind of enthusiasm at the club. So we've got to keep an eye over our shoulder. For me, still top 6, and I'll be very, very happy. Top 4 is like a dream come true. So talk to me about this Leeds 1, Liverpool 1. Liverpool throw away a lead again.
They came under mounting pressure in the second half. I thought Leeds were a bit sloppy in the first half, which it kind of felt like a product of the fact, obviously, Rafinha, who's their best player, was missing. But then in the second half, they played so well without their best player. I think Liverpool became deep because, again, they filled one problem by creating 2 problems. And I understand with no Phillips available, he probably felt he had to play Fabinho at centre-back. But at the moment, if they haven't got Fabinho or Jordan Henderson in midfield, they're in trouble, basically. And that's why I refer to, as a Trent owner, you might be thinking, oh, yeah, Phillips is injured. Phillips being available would be better for your clean sheet prospects tomorrow, in my opinion, purely to get Fabinho back in midfield. It gives them control. Leeds had more than 70% of the ball in that second half, created 4 big chances. I mean, if they'd equalised early, I think there's a good chance they'd have gone on and won, actually. And everything I said about Leeds perhaps being a bit more pragmatic, I'd been that shit. On what I watched in that second half, they threw everything at Liverpool. Obviously, the first goal, which was scored by Mane, brilliant ball from Jota, actually, ironically, to Trent to get him in behind, was encapsulated the danger of Leeds in that man-to-man system. If you can pull people apart, when it works for them, it obviously works really well. When you play up against a really good team who's got the movement, they can find that kind of space to open it up. But Liverpool didn't have too many of those moments. And by the end, I mean, the draw was the minimum that Leeds deserved. I thought, just to shout out a name, I know Llorente scored, but I thought his all-round performance was very good anyway. Me and Andy spoke about him yesterday on the podcast, and we agreed, like, now he's fit, he's beginning to look like a really good player. And all I'd say is, if Klopp does rule Phillips out and you've got a problem, I don't think at 4.4 is safe. You want to get up to Dallas for not so much this weekend, but Leeds' final 5 fixtures. If you can't get up there, I don't think Llorente is a bad shout, because he is a powerhouse, actually, and potentially gives Leeds better dominance both offensively and defensively at set pieces. I think it's 4.4, and I think it's reasonable. So I think it's one, possibly those who've got defensive holes, you might Manchester United at home, but in the long-term process, he might not be the worst call, actually. We're all waiting on Rafinha, though. So to be frankly honest, we need some information, because if Rafinha's ruled out, then, if Rafinha and Phillips are both ruled out this afternoon, then the transfers I've spoken about could both be binned, and I could be looking, I'd probably just settle for a -4, go for 10 players, but it might be that I find very different routes to what I've said earlier in the podcast. It might be that I go, well, I need a cheaper one and I need to get up to something more powerful. It might be, for example, that if Klopp says Phillips is out for 2 weeks, I might reverse it to try and force Trent in, for example. So the news this afternoon is particularly important. I think it was obviously a difficult night for Liverpool, even more so Chelsea the next night. But I mean, the media scrutiny was so big on them. I don't think, it must have been extremely difficult to concentrate on the game from Klopp's perspective, even to know that the only questions he was going to get was about the circus that was going on around him. And his football club, Liverpool weren't the only one, obviously put him in a very difficult situation to have to follow that within 24 hours of the news breaking and no comment from any of the owners, Liverpool, etc. So well done to James Milner, who come and spoke out afterwards. Well done to Jordan Henderson, I think rallied around a lot of Premier League captains, and obviously the Liverpool players released a joint statement and stuff. Was powerful stuff. I think it was a difficult night for them. Drawing at Leeds is nobody's worst result. Obviously, anybody could get done there, and I would not be surprised if they beat Manchester United on Sunday.
Chelsea, Brighton, the following night was even more of a circus in terms of the protests going on. Bus got stopped coming in. We've all seen the videos with Peter Cech out there and getting dogs abuse and what have you. But then they backed it up with a 0-0 draw against Brighton. I mean, Brighton default result draw.
I basically, it was on, but I basically didn't watch any of the first half because I was watching the most glorious hour on Twitter I've ever experienced. There was a point that was scrolling through, explained this on the Patreon pod I did yesterday. It was scrolling through and it was like Woodward's been sacked, Agnelli's maybe resigned, and all the clubs are pulling out. It was like bang, 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 bang. Every message was about the Super League, and so positive when it was just falling apart like a pack of cards. Every comment was so positive. And then you get through and just randomly I'd see like, why is Mendy benched? And I'd be like, get your head out the sand. It doesn't matter. So I can't tell you a lot of what happened in the first half, and it didn't seem like a knock was, and I didn't have any interest to go and watch it back. In the second half, Brighton were by far the more likely team to go and win it in the end. I mean, Welbeck's effort that hit the post, Lallana could have got a couple actually. They had chances. They were the more likely team to win it. Ben White was outstanding. Him and Lewis Dunk particularly. Before he obviously got a late red card, so he'll be suspended.
I was going to say he's sent off now, so
he'll be suspended for this week. It must have been even more difficult for Chelsea players than the Liverpool players, because even if they obviously had a bit more time to process the news and maybe get themselves head straight from the game. But they've just beat Manchester City in an FA Cup semi-final. And they're turning up at their home ground and they can't get in the stadium.
Yeah.
I mean, mentally, Thomas Tuchel said that basically that they weren't talking about the players and that no one was talking about the game. It was just talking about what they could do in relation to the Super League and stuff. But obviously felt they couldn't go out in like the T-shirts and stuff like Leeds and Brighton did because they hadn't got the okay from their owners or anything. So it must have been extremely difficult for them. They've obviously gone from a massive high to like, what is this? So I would almost wipe the game from a Chelsea perspective. Forget it happened. Brighton, I'm a fan of the way they play and stuff. It's always a harder game than it looks. They can go toe-to-toe possession-wise with some of the best in this country and are a threat just until they get to goal.
Any thoughts on perhaps like a Leandro Trossard as a midfield problem solver for a Rafinha or something like that? He's got low ownership, 5.8 million. I did look at him thinking, do I want if he's just there to fill a hole until the end of the season and get me out of trouble if one of my main 11 doesn't play? Trossard's not a bad shout. He does go on short runs where he does pick up returns. He is in my thoughts. I've hardly owned the Brighton player all season. I think only Lamptey for bits is all I've had this year. So I might. He's there as an outside chance of getting in. Trossard. He's the only midfielder I'd go for. I'd go for him over Lallana or any of the others.
I think the slight concern I'd have with Brighton for this weekend is the game against Chelsea felt like the first time they'd really mucked about with the team a little bit recently. Now, some of that was a little bit enforced. He probably doesn't want Adam Lallana to play 3 times in a week and stuff, like Alexis McAllister played. Neil Maupay got a break and stuff. So I'd just be a little bit concerned that they view it and go, Sheffield United will give a few bodies a run out and stuff. You can never be too sure with Potter. That would be my only concern with that. I think for those who are looking to cover a defensive hole for this week, like I had a question yesterday, I need someone literally just for this week defensively. Go and get a Veltman or something.
Veltman's a good price.
Veltman went back to wing back on Tuesday night could well go back to centre back because of Ben White's suspension. That might be quite dependent on the situation with Webster because he's a doubt again. It could be that they draw Burn back to centre back. He's obviously another option. They bring Moda back into the team, who I've been quite impressed with recently. Didn't start at Chelsea. So there's a few different options they can go with that. I think if you need a filler just for this week, you are better off going defensively. And I think like Joel Veltman's price, if you just want something for this week, that seems straightforward for me. I would get that done. I'm not looking for this week. I'm looking at a few other weeks as well. Otherwise, I would buy Brighton this week. I don't think it works for me, Brighton, but it will for a lot of other people.
Spurs 2, Southampton 1. You win a game. I mean, that sounds a bit harsh, to be fair. You have won games, but...
Thanks, sweetheart.
You know, it just... Half-time, everyone was piling in. Same shit with Spurs. But you did recover. Sonny had his disallowed goal as well. But it was a late victory.
A late and barely deserved victory. I mean, the first half, Southampton should have had the game won out of sight.
Yeah. And I think this is what people are interested in, James, that they trust you to be honest about your team and not suddenly think that you're going to be winning the league next year. But a lot have ended up on double and triple Spurs without a game this week, but doubles in the future and need to know where to go and what to do. So barely deserved.
People are more interested in knowing was the protest piss poor, and I can tell you it was because I went down there and it was only a few hundred or so. But as I said to you offline yesterday, it did enough to keep it in the news. The fact that ENIC out, greed over success, and all these kind of messages were on the back pages of the papers yesterday. Did enough. My cap, yes, was on the back page of the Daily Mirror. My face isn't because I'm such a midget. And I went back from.
Did you buy about 20 copies? Send them to all
of what
family members. The Mirror. Send them to family members. Highlight yourself with a big Sharpie pen.
No one buys newspapers anymore, do they?
They do not.
Is that a thing?
They do not. I mean, I found it quite. I was thinking about this yesterday. Do you remember? Probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago, you were saying as we were in the hunt for top 4, if West Ham lost a few games because we hadn't replaced the striker and Antonio's out injured, that the club fans will very quickly be GSB out. How ironic that it's your fans that are now ENIC out instead.
I do think, though, say you lost at the weekend and then you lose at Burnley, it's probably top 4 would be done. And it's not impossible you would lose those 2 games. And I just think it will start through social media that people will be complaining about the lack of squad depth is what's going to cost you at the end of the day. And to be honest, that would be true. Bowen's doing a great job up front at the moment, though. So it's not a massive problem.
Yeah.
Anyway, I went home I left the protest about 5:20 because for me, once the protest left the main road, there was nothing.
No point.
Nothing to see, basically. So I went home and my mind wasn't on the game at all. I got home just as the game was about to kick off. And the first half was like watching the same shit. I couldn't get out of my mind in the first half that the grass looked really long. It's like all the passes were short, everything was under hit. It was like someone actually mowed the lawn at half time and we started playing football. And we just played with a bit of tempo and a bit of intensity. It wasn't brilliant by any means, but we got high up the pitch, Serge. You know what pleased me most about the game was the final 6 minutes. Board goes up for six minutes added time. We've just scored. What do you think is happening under Mourinho? We're camping on the edge of our box.
The bus.
Correct.
Yeah.
Southampton didn't have a kick in them last 6 minutes. The game was played in their half. We kept the ball. We played high. We pressed their back line. We forced them to go direct so they couldn't play through us and stuff. And that really impressed me because I haven't seen that from a Tottenham team in 18 months or so, right? Second half, they played with intent to win the game. As I said, it was by no means perfect. And I was able to get emotional towards the end of it. I'd gone from no interest, basically, to the point that originally on Wednesday, I was like, you know what? If I have to miss the game, if this protest is big enough, I'm prepared to do so. So actually, by the end of it, willing the team to score a winning goal. Like when the Sun goal was disallowed, it wasn't one that was obvious. It was going to be a VAR problem. Originally, you think that's a good goal. get up, shot a goal. So you have the disappointment, then the height. In the last minute of the game, I'm screaming at this penalty. And everyone's going, is it a handball? What are they looking at? Like, it's a foul. And I think it's in the box. Chris Coleman on commentary, oh my God, it was so bad. Like, can someone tell the audience what I'm seeing? Because I'm seeing that they're probably going to be reviewing is the foul by Gineppo in the box. And when it first happened, I thought that's in the box. It was obviously extremely close. Son scores the penalty. Just a note on that, just in case Harry Kane does happen to be out for a couple of weeks, we're not expecting. I think if he'd have still been on the pitch, I think Bale would have taken the penalty. Just as a side note on that. And Bale was obviously back in the team. And with Sheffield United at home next week, in game week 34, you would expect him to play again. I actually think Bale will start the final on Sunday now. Same players, different coach.
Thoughts on Southampton? I mean, they're not playing this week, so no one's buying them now. But they do have the Crystal Palace game to be chucked in. They've got some decent fixtures: Fulham, Crystal Palace, West Ham. But West Ham last day of the season, I'm not sure that's last day of school kind of stuff, really. Any desire to want to go near Southampton? There's none for me.
Well, obviously not now because they're not playing this weekend. And it might well have been a player that I might well have considered, actually, if they'd have had a decent fixture this weekend, because they covered a 35-36 potential problem. I think James Ward-Prowse and Stuart Armstrong particularly actually would have been in my thoughts. It just disappeared as an entity in the second half. They've now conceded more points from winning positions than Tottenham themselves this season. And I don't know if there's some sort of mentality block in them at the moment. Because when they're at their best, I've said this last season, I'll say it again now, and I actually said it after we've beaten 5-2.
We've seen it.
I don't enjoy playing them because they play with intensity when they're at their best. And I think on their day, they're capable of beating the majority of the teams. I'm not quite sure what the thinking was behind Nathan Redmond not playing when he appeared to be coming into a bit of form. Admittedly, they had the FA Cup semi-final 3 days before, so you don't know what condition people are in and stuff. But I thought he was a miss. And I guess it's kind of proven by the fact, obviously, Ings, we think, has picked up a hamstring injury. Che Adams could easily have scored. I mean, to say he's missed a sitter in the first minute would be incorrect because it just hit Norris. It didn't actually miss it as such. So Che Adams maybe would perhaps come into the thinking, I think, maybe for the final three, because I'm probably going to want two forwards for the final 3 game weeks to replace Vardy and Iheanacho, assuming Leicester blank in game week 36. I'm definitely going to blank somewhere because I've got the FA Cup final. But not at the moment. No, I don't think so. It's more a case of, for Forster owners, what do you do? My take on it at the moment is, it's not actually a problem for me till game week 36. So I'm going to let the next 2 weeks go and then assess the problem, because I think it's just as easy he'll come back in the team next week. I believe that's possible. I don't think there's a clear number one between them now, and that's a problem in this, to the extent that it could very easily change. But I'm not
week in, week out. Yeah,
I'm not. When I've got Leno this week, and 2 decent fixtures still to go for Leno, I'm not worrying about it at the moment. Definitely not worrying about it this week, unless Arteta came out and said something like next week, oh yeah, I'm going to play Ryan again against Newcastle, in which case I've got a problem and I've probably got to deal with it. But I don't think it's an immediate concern. No one was going to play him this week anyway. So I think if you've got like Mendy and Forster and you're worried about what's happening there, I think at the moment you're probably better off selling Mendy than Forster. And I think, to be honest with you, I think the best solution for the majority of people who have the problem, unfortunately, is probably to join everybody else's no problem, which is Emi Martinez. If you're in and around the Mendy Leno problem and don't know what to do and want to make a move now, Martinez I think is the easiest way to go. They've got a good. I've kind of been through their fixture already, but you immediately walk into a good fixture. There are alternatives. Sanchez at Brighton is safe now. Cheap as you walk into another good fixture. Meslier wouldn't be the bad choice from Leeds. They have got a good final 5. Flappy, similar.
Yeah.
There are solutions out there.
Let's talk about Villa City. Obviously, McGinn's early goal was a bit of a kick in the nuts for any defensive assets that we owned. And there are still 17.5% of managers that have John Stones. So his red card added misery onto that clean sheet wipeout early for many City owners. But De Bruyne, was obviously because of his injury, and they ended up winning comfortably in the end. Phil Foden is really looking a player at the moment. What do we do here? I mean, I'm surprised you're going for Matt Targett. I do get that you only want 4 points out of it, but if he picks up a booking or they concede 2 or more, then straight away that 4 becomes 2 or 3, mate. And they've lost Matty Cash now on the other side, who has been, I mean, that back 4 has been pretty stable season. Cash, Konsa, Mings, Targett. To lose a piece of a back 4 like that sometimes can be a bit of a pain. So I'm not so convinced when one cog gets taken out like that it's not ideal. It's just meh. Villa.
By the way, if I was on a free hit this week, I'd probably be getting El Mohamadou. And there will be a lot of people who will. He's dirt cheap. He's going to cover for Cash at right back this week. You don't want him afterwards. So he's a brilliant one to throw in, actually, if you're on a free hit this week. And a lot of people will be. No, I haven't got the major concerns about it, Suj.
Okay.
To be honest. Playing West Brom at home as well. So that alone makes it a possibility.
Well, we'll talk about them in a minute when we talk about Leicester, West Brom. And that's just a dead game.
I've got no liking Villa offensive, and like I said, I'm only looking to use Targett in 3 of the remaining 6 game weeks as well, right? So I don't have to look at the bigger picture. He would literally sit third sub for me, and I probably don't need to make the saving by going down to Konsa. That's something I do want to assess. Is look at potential future moves this afternoon and just make sure that I don't need that 0.3. I can't see me needing it, in all honesty. There's enough other similar alternatives, even if I am short of something. So I think I'll go Targett, a little bit better attacking threat from left back. Obviously, because they're playing West Brom, there's a good chance he'll be able to get high, get crosses into the box. Similarly, when they play Crystal Palace in game week 36. Although Palace do particularly have a problem defending set pieces, which I'm conscious of if I decide to go Targett over Konsa. But yeah, not overly worried about it. It's a filler, isn't it? So I'm not saying I'm going to buy Targett. I'm not saying I'm potentially going to buy Matt Targett because suddenly Aston Villa are brilliant. They're really not. It's a filler for potentially 3 decent game weeks. It's the right fixtures for me who's got a defensive hole. Dallas is the obvious alternative. Because people go, well, we're not going to buy Dallas over Targett. And I get that completely. But I'm just looking to boost me up a little bit for game week 35 as well, I think. And Dallas has got Tottenham. I think if Dallas had Burnley, Southampton, West Brom in 35, rather than possibly a more offensive Tottenham, which we may well get now, then I would have still gone Dallas over Targett, I think.
Man City, I'm struggling because I've got nothing to say about them. Like in terms of rotation and who's going to play and who's not going to play, we never know week in, week out. Whoever plays can and can't get you returns just like that. I mean, Bernardo Silva, who for the last 4 or 5 years has been so good and quite often so cheap in FPL, 7.4 million, 1% owned, but he pops up with 2 assists, max bonus points all of a sudden. So anyone, anywhere, anytime might be their game that week.
Oof.
And that's it. They're like pick and choose, take a deep breath and crack on. Like I'm left with only Ruben Diaz at the moment, and that's fine. And I'll just carry him through. Will I go back to more City towards the end of the season? I don't know if I will, James, because there were 11 points clear with 6 games to go for so it's done, right? They win 3 more games, league's done, which they're going to do. And then now Champions League's a big deal for them with those fixtures. So yeah, I think City for me. I mean, what do we say about City? Is there any advice to give to people other than?
No, there isn't, and I think he's
obviously don't buy Stones is obvious.
Let's go with your own feeling. Look, if we had a little bit more confidence, and if they had a decent fixture, say the Jota problem, right? If Man City were playing in the Premier League this week and had a good fixture, I think I'd just punt him. Playing too well, right?
Foden.
Foden. Of all the players in that Man City team, the one I don't want to see on Sunday is Phil Foden. It's just absolutely. I think I'd rather see De Bruyne at the moment. He's absolutely flying, Phil Foden. What will he, if he plays on that left side against Aurier? Jesus Christ. Anyway, in terms of for my own, I've kind of been looking at this at Ruben Diaz perspective. So John Stones obviously got sent off against Villa. I presume that City are not going to appeal it. I think it was an orange, if I'm very honest with you. But I don't think, because it's dangerous and reckless, I don't think City have got the grounds to appeal. So Stones is going to be suspended for the Carabao Cup final this weekend, and also the fixtures against Palace and Chelsea. So Stones isn't available as it stands till game week 36. So once you factor that in, Stones can obviously play in the Champions League games, right? So presumably Stones is going to play the 2 legs against PSG, isn't he? You've got to, surely. And he's not.
Don't ask me. Don't ask me lineup questions about Man City.
All right, fine.
I mean, yeah, probably. Logic dictates he
Stones
should.
And Diaz are going to play the 2 games against PSG. Now, Stones is suspended this weekend. Is he going to be brave enough to leave Diaz out against Tottenham as well? So then suddenly you're looking at Diaz having to play PSG, Tottenham, and then PSG straight after Palace. And that's what's made me come to the conclusion. I think the Palace game doesn't matter. They can play Aki and Laporte, Fernandinho at centre-back, Garcia. They could play Garcia and Aki against Palace. That's what's made me think I can't see them taking the risk of Diaz against Palace. And that's why I want to bin it. And I think you will get a rotated Manchester City team against Tottenham this weekend, but it will still be strong. And you will get a rotated team against Crystal Palace, which will still look quite strong. It's not going to help anybody from an FPL perspective. So they're off radar right now for me, completely.
So let's extend out that conversation then around Ruben Diaz, because I'm happy to bin him as well. I bought him at 6-1, he's 6-2, so there's no money involved in that conversation. And talk about Leicester, because they've just come on a comfortable 3-0 win. Look, Jamie Vardy, we've always known what he can do. Just a note on Jamie Vardy. Guy's 34 years old, and he's still killing it. So I'm
extremely good in that first half last night.
Yeah, I mean, at his age, to be doing what he's doing, respect to the guy. Yeah, 21.5% ownership at the moment. Iheanacho is at 19.1. We know the merits of the Leicester attackers. If I didn't get rid of Jota or what have you, and I decide off the back of our conversation that Ruben Diaz is expendable and I've got less value built up in him than a Harry Kane, I think Castagne is a good option. He was at the start of the season, then obviously he disappeared for a little while. Came back in yesterday, hit the post. I think Castagne is an interesting one to consider at 5.7.
So the only thing is, obviously in the semi-final, Pereira played left wing back, Castagne went back to right wing back, and obviously Castagne stayed in that position last night against West Brom. I thought Luke Thomas was very good at left wing back, and these are the sort of fixtures that are coming up where you think, you can be a bit braver to get him in. And it is a bit natural to...
Luke Thomas.
Yeah, play at left wing back because he's left-footed and stuff as well, whereas Pereira and Castagne are right-footed. Rogers said on Pereira that at the moment he just can't play 3 times in a week. They won't take the risk of him because he's obviously suffered bad injuries and stuff. So it would be extremely surprising if Castagne came out of the team. But I don't think it's impossible that Thomas might play again against Palace on Monday night. That's the only thing I'd say about that. You are probably safer going with Soyuncu, Evans, or Fofana. Just a note on...
No attacking threat. There's not as much... Okay, Evans scored yesterday, I get it. But there's just not the attacking threat.
Just a note on Fofana. Rogers said the reason that he was substituted is because he's fasting for Ramadan. Right. And with the game 1, they just wanted to take him off the pitch. That was
Understood.
It. So is Salah doing that at the moment?
He will. Well, if he's being religious, he should be. Yeah.
Yeah. There's some certain things that Mo Salah shouldn't have done this year that he has done, though. I'm thinking of attending large-scale weddings in Egypt. Might be a really good example of that.
Yeah.
Should that put anyone off Salah captaincy tomorrow or today even?
With the fact that it's lighter evenings and mornings.
Does that help?
It's going to be a long time between he eats. It makes it worse, doesn't it?
Makes it worse.
Yeah, like if you're in the middle of winter, obviously it doesn't get light and you can't eat during the hours of sunlight.
So you can only eat when it's dark?
Yeah, so he'd have to have his breakfast at like 5:30 or 6 in the morning before it gets light is when he'll be filling his boots, and then he won't be eating again till the game.
So he could get up at like 4:30 in the morning, couldn't he?
Yeah, he will. That's what he will do.
Right. Okay.
He's gonna have to fuel up for the whole day. That
right.
which is not ideal, right? He's not going to have had any lunch or anything. But
right, I'm still captaining then. It's fine. We did kick off at lunchtime. He'll be all right, won't it?
Oh, yeah. So if it's a lunchtime kickoff, then I wouldn't have any worries about it.
Yeah, they're the 12:30.
Yeah, so that's perfect. Yeah, no, I wouldn't second guess that then.
Okay. That's noteworthy. That if everyone's scrapping. Hang on, who's being religious at the moment? Have we got a list? Someone put a list on Twitter of all the people fasting.
Yeah, I mean, we know the potential upside with Leicester, and I think people are going to start increasing the number of Leicester players that they have, but they are prone to the odd slip up, which they did against West Ham, for example. But I think I trust Leicester between now and the end of the season. They're going to consolidate their top 4 spot quite easily. They've got a 4-point lead over Chelsea and West Ham now. They should be able to see it out.
Well, this was it. I think their eyes are really on this moment, because if they win the next 3 games, then I think they can possibly afford to rest a few against Manchester United, which will be 3 days before the FA Cup final, we think is what's going to happen. Get the job done. They've got to be thinking about it. Look, if they win again on Monday night, they're going to at least pull further clear of at least one of West Ham or Chelsea, right? Because they're playing each other. So just get the job done in these 3 games. I think they're really focused on it. Get these 3 games won, and that will be enough for them. The last 3 games shouldn't matter. So I think they're going all out for it at the moment. They were so impressive in that first half yesterday. I mean, West Brom were pathetic. Barred one early chance that Diagne had. They were nothing. Never put a tackle in. Never got near anyone. Abject, which is a shame after, obviously, the Chelsea and the Southampton results. And you do think, oh, could they? I mean, I was seeing quite a few people saying online last night before the game, fancy West Brom to win and stuff, actually. So they were poor. They're finished if they were having any hopes of staying up, I think, and their fixture run's it's not even great, to be honest. They haven't got on paper an easy fixture left. You could argue actually that Villa this weekend might even be their easiest fixture left. I note that the Wolves game has been put to 6 o'clock on a Monday. The real graveyard shift this season, isn't it? The 6 o'clock Monday. I don't know what West Brom and Wolves fans think about that, because the West Country derby is meant to be a big deal to the two of
them. There we go. Should we do a few Twitter questions, James?
Yes, let's do that, and we'll wrap it up and get this out for everyone.
Do you know one thing I do think? Like, I've noticed now that a lot of live events are starting to come up and be planned around June, July, August, all that kind of stuff. I'm sure we should start thinking about Planet FPL Live 4 at some point. The question is, James, where? If you could choose anywhere in the country to do Planet FPL Live 4, where would you choose?
I'll say White Hart Lane.
Why there?
It's big space beyond the home end, mate, if they let us use it.
Maybe it's Birmingham. Birmingham's the second city. Can
we just do London first, like for the first one?
Just keep it nice and
before
simple.
We start traveling. Let me get in Wembley tomorrow. For the first time this morning, I woke up and I was like, can you imagine if I don't pass that COVID test tomorrow? Can you imagine?
Oh dear. There's a few questions here that we have answered. There's a lot of Mendy Leno stuff. FPL Canada. This is an interesting one for you, James. Would you start Dele Alli versus City at the weekend?
Oh, that's completely non-FPL. No, I wouldn't. No.
Yeah, I don't know where that's coming from, but I wouldn't either.
What Dele Alli needs, in my opinion, is he needs to play for the under-23s for a couple of games. Not as a punishment. He just needs to feel like he's the best player on the pitch.
Right.
I think. Just to get his confidence up again and stuff. And obviously fitness is crucial. I don't think you can take a completely unfit player into a game against Manchester City. And for those saying Kane's not going to be fully fit, listen, they'll stick a needle in his ankle. His fitness is fine. They just need to give him a painkilling injection. That's it. So no, I wouldn't start Dele Alli. I would like to see Dele Alli integrated into Wolves, getting on the pitch in the last few games. He's got to find that fitness from somewhere. So I mean, Sheffield United next week would be the perfect game to try and give him some of that fitness, you would think. So yeah, I would like to see him play against Sheffield United next week. Against City at the weekend in the cup final, I would only be using him if the game was close and we needed an equalising goal or something.
We've got a question here from Joe. Amrabatman Joe says, if every time you entered a room, you had entrance music, what would the song be? And he's used the gif of like a wrestler, right? So you're talking about like a ring walk or something.
To be honest, it was the first thing that I thought of. Ring walk. Oh my God. All I can think of is the Undertaker's music, but then I don't think that works for me, being about 1.5 foot shorter. I'd be dragging the coat along the floor, wouldn't I? The hat would go straight over my whole head. You wouldn't see my face. I know yours.
What's that?
Yeah, I reckon you'd go for Shawn Michaels music.
Yeah, but I wouldn't.
I'm a sexy boy.
I don't know Shawn Michaels music, so I mean, it would work. I'd take AC/DC's Thunderstruck.
Actually, no, you got to take Stone Cold's music, haven't you, with the breaking glass and stuff, I think.
Possibly, maybe. There's a few more. Yeah, the questions this week are all answered in the chat about the games, James.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, I think we're good. Matt's got a cheeky question here. Matt Lowy says, great coverage this week. Has Agent Bielsa hidden Rafinha conveniently when playing the teams who are going to want to buy him to avoid a Cantona part 2? Basically, just trying to keep him hidden, because you have talked about it in the past that he could go and play anywhere, really, Rafinha. He's proven himself to be a talented little boy. I shouldn't say little boy, that's patronising, isn't it? Talented lad. So
he could definitely play for anyone, Rafinha.
Yeah.
Top draw.
I think he's genuinely injured. So
yeah. There's no doubt. I mean, I expected he was going to play against Liverpool on Monday. So, I mean, I want some news from Bielsa that's going to give some sort of clarity. I genuinely might have to cut him off if he's going to be out again, which the plan was always to bench him for the last 2 game weeks for me anyway. So it didn't matter, with the idea of using him from here on in to the end. But I think because Tottenham have got Sheffield United next week, if they're going to be out, I'm going to sacrifice Rafinha rather than a Son or something, aren't I? I think that's the right play. I saw someone put on, is it time next week already to switch like Reguilon to Bale and stuff like? Don't be doing those sort of things. If you've got your Tottenham players and you want to hold them for next week, just hold the ones you've got. Don't be thinking about wasting the transfers for moves that you might need further on by switching players amongst Tottenham. I mean, Bale, let's be honest, he could get injured at any moment as well anyway, right? So I wouldn't be going down that route.
No. Listeners, I hope you've had a chance to listen to this before the game week 33 deadline. If you are, then jump onto YouTube. It'll be 5 o'clock UK time, right? Is it 6 o'clock? 6:30 deadline to 5:30. 5:30 UK time for James's live stream. That's youtube.com/Planet FPL. Patreons, you're going to get a differential show later. James and I'll be running down our transfers before the deadline. And if you are interested in becoming a patron, it's patreon.com/Planet FPL. Basically, just search Planet FPL. You find all our shit all over the internet.
Just before we finish as well, the Patreon podcast we did on Wednesday, I did
Correct.
tweet this out, the death of the Super League, we called it. It's only about 35 minutes or so. We have made that available to everybody. So if anybody wants to listen to that, you can find it on my timeline on Twitter. If you can't find it, give me a shout and I'll send you the link for it. You don't have to sign up to anything to be able to. It's just open and it's available to everyone if you want to listen to it. So we felt some of the messages in there were too important, basically. So we've released it for everyone, but that's the only place that it's available to listen to. Next week, Suj, I imagine it probably will be something financial in football related for Monday's People's Poll. Main pod Tuesday, Sky Wednesday, 2 Clash of the Correspondents for you next week. Thursday, Adam Hotcroft, Spirit Blues, Villa versus Everton. Friday, Turfy Topper, and FPL Sky Addict, Burnley versus West Ham.
Nice. So wherever you are listening to the podcast, the free version, stay tuned by hitting the notification bell or subscribing or whatever else you need to do on those platforms. Follow, like, I don't know what the buttons are, but just hit them. Don't hit the report button or block or whatever else. We don't want none of those.
Don't get suspended on Twitter again.
Nah. Most importantly, stay safe wherever you are. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Cue music, please, man. Shall be nice to each other and good luck this week.